I want you to imagine stepping up to a microphone, getting ready to interview a world leader. And you know that every single word you say is going to be analyzed by millions of people.
Oh, yeah. Talk about pressure. Or, imagine stepping onto a soccer pitch in front of, 70,000 screaming fans for a do-or-die World Cup match where the hopes of an entire nation are literally resting on your shoulders.
Right. On the surface, those are two completely different arenas, right? One is intensely physical, it's loud, it's incredibly public. And the other is, well, it's quiet, it's cerebral and intimate.
Exactly. But the underlying mechanics of how human beings actually achieve greatness, like true greatness, under those types of immense pressure, are practically identical.
They really are. And that's why today, for this deep dive, we are exploring just an incredibly unique stack of sources. I mean, it's an eclectic mix.
It really is.
We've got these in-depth match reports and tactical breakdowns from that thrilling 2026 World Cup Group K clash between DR Congo and Uzbekistan.
Such a wild game.
Yeah, and we're laying those tactical reports directly over granular meteorological data, weather data, from the tournament's host cities on that exact same day.
And then, to tie it all together, we're filtering all of this through a comprehensive masterclass guide on the hidden psychological skills behind world-class interviewing.
So the mission for this deep dive is we want to deconstruct the anatomy of a breakthrough performance. We're going to look at how mastering your environment, intentionally engineering friction, and, exploiting structural gaps can lead to historic results.
Whether you're managing an international football squad or just guiding a really high-stakes conversation.
Right. So let's jump straight to June 27, 2026. This is the final day of group stage play. And looking at the National Weather Service data from this day, it just shows absolute environmental chaos across the North American host cities.
Oh, the weather was wreaking havoc everywhere.
Exactly. Down in Miami Gardens, where Colombia is playing Portugal, the ambient temperature is sitting between 90 and 93 degrees.
And that's just the baseline, right? The heat index was pushing way up into the upper 90s.
Yeah. The NWS actually flagged the specific region with a major heat risk warning. And it's compounded by this Saharan dust drifting across the Atlantic, which acts like a blanket trapping the heat. Plus, you have isolated afternoon thunderstorms threatening to halt play at literally any moment.
The physiological toll of those conditions is just immense. When humidity combines with that kind of ambient heat, evaporative cooling, which is basically how the human body regulates temperature through sweat, it just stops working effectively.
Wow, so they basically can't cool down.
Right. The athlete's core temperatures spike, their cognitive processing slows way down, and their decision-making degrades long before their muscles actually give out.
That's terrifying for an elite athlete. And over in Arlington, Texas, for the Jordan versus Argentina match, this situation is similarly punishing. The air outside the stadium is baking at 98 degrees.
Just brutal conditions for an outdoor sport.
But then you look at Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. DR Congo is facing Uzbekistan. Outside the stadium walls, it's 85 to 90 degrees with violent, classic Georgia summer thunderstorms rolling through.
Yep, heavy rain, lightning, all of it.
But inside, the players are completely shielded. The massive retractable roof is locked, closed. The internal temperature is a perfectly controlled, climate-managed 72 degrees. There's no wind, there's no glare.
And that is so crucial. By closing that roof, FIFA and the stadium engineers are executing this fundamental principle of peak performance, which is neutralizing external variables.
Could you break that down a bit?
Well, they're deliberately engineering a controlled environment so the athletes can focus entirely on executing, these incredibly complex tactical movements. They aren't expending finite cognitive and physical energy simply trying to survive the elements.
That makes so much sense. And the podcasting masterclass in our stack calls this exact concept designing an intentional guest experience.
Yes. A masterful interviewer essentially builds a psychological dome for their guest.
A psychological dome. I love that.
Right. Because most amateur hosts assume the work starts the moment they press the record button. They fire off generic cold pitches, skip the prep, and just launch into questions.
Which is just a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. The masterclass argues that elite interviewers construct this secure environment weeks in advance. They design highly personalized onboarding processes. They hold pre-interview calibration calls to share context, build rapport, and set expectations.
They're actively eliminating the weather of uncertainty.
Precisely. They control the climate of the conversation.
Which is funny because thinking about it, forcing a guest to sit down without that meticulous onboarding is essentially like making those soccer players play 90 minutes in the brutal Miami heat without a water break.
That's a great analogy.
You are guaranteeing a defensive, exhausted, and sloppy performance before the conversation even begins. I mean, the guest is going to spend the entire time scanning for threats and trying to survive your questions rather than actually opening up.
Totally. When you build that dome, the guest knows they're in safe hands. They drop their defensive posture. But the masterclass introduces a deeper layer to this, which the author calls the tension safety paradox.
The tension safety paradox.
Yeah. You don't build a safe environment just to have a cozy, agreeable, forgettable chat.
Yeah.
You build that absolute safety specifically so you can introduce extreme stress and tension later in the process without the entire system breaking down.
Oh, wow. Okay. The tactical stakes of this June 27th match actually perfectly illustrate that concept of necessary tension. So, Uzbekistan, managed by the legendary Italian defender Fabio Canavaro.
An absolute legend.
Oh, for sure. They're coming into this game reeling from a humiliating 5-0 loss to Portugal. Their chances of advancing out of the group are mathematically microscopic.
Yeah, they needed a miracle.
Right. They need a miraculous 6-goal win just to sniff third place. So Canavaro has to somehow restore his team's defensive pride while simultaneously finding a way to score half a dozen goals.
Which is a nearly impossible mandate. And on the other side, DR Congo, managed by Sébastien Desabre, is facing a very different kind of a pressure. They lost a tight, incredibly frustrating match to Colombia, 1-0.
Yeah, and in that game against Colombia, Desabre utilized a rigid 5-3-2 low block. Let's actually break down the mechanics of a 5-3-2 low block really quick, just so we understand exactly what Desabre was doing there.
Go for it.
So it involves taking your defensive line of 5 players and your midfield line of 3 and packing them deep into your own territory, like dangerously close to your own penalty box.
Right, you're parking the bus, essentially.
Exactly. You are deliberately conceding possession of the ball in the middle third of the pitch. The goal is to choke off all the attacking space near your goal, forcing the opposing team to just pass the ball harmlessly side to side because there's just no room to penetrate.
It's a highly protective, low-risk, survival-oriented posture. But thing is, Desabre knows a 0-0 draw against Uzbekistan does absolutely nothing for his tournament hopes.
Right. He needs a win.
He needs a definitive win to reach the round of 32. So he makes this massive tactical gamble. He completely abandons that protective 5-man backline.
Which is huge.
It is. He shifts to a highly aggressive attacking formation, deliberately pushing his wingbacks high up the pitch to create numerical overloads in the offensive half.
So he intentionally introduces structural tension into his own team's shape.
Exactly. And the masterclass source explicitly states that amateur interviews fail because they operate like a conversational low block.
Oh, that's fascinating. A conversational low block.
Right. The host plays it entirely safe. They sit back in a protective posture, asking the exact same expected chronological questions the guest has already answered on 50 other shows.
And in response, the guest just passes the ball harmlessly side to side, right?
Good.
Offering rehearsed talking points and elevator pitches. No new ground is broken at all.
Exactly. No one learns anything new.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second. Isn't tension inherently confrontational? Like, if I spend an entire month building this incredibly secure environment, making the guest feel completely safe in my psychological dome, and then I suddenly abandon my conversational low block to play devil's advocate.
You're worried about breaking that trust.
Yeah. Do I not risk torpedoing all that trust? Why wouldn't the guest just feel ambushed and completely shut down? Or, going back to the soccer analogy, if a team totally abandons its defensive spine, don't you risk getting burned on the counterattack?
That is the exact fear. That fear of alienating the guest is the primary reason most hosts avoid tension entirely. Elite interviewers, however, utilize a technique called angular questioning.
Angular question. Okay, what does that look like?
They introduce unexpected shifts in the narrative. They present difficult hypothetical scenarios, or they gently challenge a foundational premise of the guest's work. But crucially, they do this from a posture of being curious, not combative.
Ah, curious, not combative. That's a great distinction.
Right. You aren't trying to create a viral gotcha moment to humiliate the person across from you. You're just nudging them out of their rehearsed script to explore the edges of their own expertise.
And because you already built the dome, the relational system can handle the stress of the challenge.
Exactly. The masterclass notes that elite guests like CEOs, authors, athletes, they actually crave this friction. They're surrounded by yes men, and are incredibly bored of giving their standard answers over and over.
That makes sense. They want to be engaged.
Yeah, when you challenge them respectfully, it signals that you've done the deep research. It forces them to synthesize new ideas in real time, which engages them fully. But introducing that kind of attacking tension completely opens the dynamic up. It forces reactions,
Yeah.
and often it forces mistakes.
And we saw that exactly on the pitch. DR Congo's attacking tension absolutely opened the game up. The spatial geometry of the pitch was completely altered. By throwing so many numbers forward into the attack, DR Congo left massive patches of open, undefended grass behind their own midfielders.
High risk, high reward.
Very high risk, because in the 10th minute, Uzbekistan exploits that exact space. Abosbek Faizalayev's delivers this quick, seeing-eye flick into that empty zone, and the Uzbek captain, Eldar Shomurodov, latches onto it.
Such a great pass.
It was perfect. He hits a beautiful looping shot over the DR Congo goalkeeper, Lionel Mpazi.
And Uzbekistan takes a 1-0 lead. The historical weight of this moment is profound, too. I mean, this is the first time a Central Asian nation has ever qualified for the World Cup finals.
Right, which is huge in itself.
Yeah, and when Shomurodov's shot hits the back of the net, it marks the very first time Uzbekistan has ever held a lead in a World Cup match. It is a monumental, emotional high for Canavaro's squad.
But the amazing thing is, DR Congo does not panic. They don't retreat back into their familiar low block to lick their wounds. They sustain their aggressive angular pressure.
They kept pressing.
Mechanically, when an attacking team constantly probes and pushes numbers forward, the defending team is forced into endless, exhausting lateral sprints to cover those overloads. It creates a compounding level of physical and mental fatigue. Eventually, the sustained pressure forces a fracture in the system.
And we saw that fracture late in the first half. Uzbekistan's star center back, Abdikodir Kusanov, reaches his breaking point. Now, Kusanov plays his club football for Manchester City. He possesses top-tier physical talent and speed.
He's a world-class player.
Absolutely. But the relentless pressure scrambles his tactical decision-making. He steps too far out of his defensive line, gets caught completely out of position by DR Congo's forward Yoann Wissa, and makes a desperate, lunging tackle.
Just totally wipes him out.
Wipes Wissa out entirely and earns a yellow card.
And the tactical breakdown source highlights a really vital detail regarding this foul. This wasn't a random, isolated error. Kusanov made an almost identical mistake in their opening match against Colombia, chasing Luis Diaz out of position and tumbling out of bounds.
So it's a pattern.
Exactly. It's a repeated structural flaw in his game when he's put under sustained angular pressure.
And the podcasting source offers a phenomenal lens for understanding how to exploit a repeated flaw like this. The masterclass teaches hosts to listen constantly for the negative space.
The negative space.
Yeah. In audio and conversation, negative space is the logical gap in a guest's reasoning, or the moment they rely on abstract fluff to avoid providing specific details.
So, imagine a guest is a tech executive and they say, we really optimized our downstream synergy to maximize Q3 deliverables, and then they just breeze past it to the next topic.
Right, a total word salad.
Yeah.
And an amateur host just nods along and asks the next question on their clipboard.
Right.
But an elite interviewer spots the structural gap in that sentence. They realize the guest used corporate jargon to mask the fact that they didn't actually explain anything. The host gently presses into that negative space, asking, can you give me a concrete example of what optimizing that synergy actually looked like on a random Tuesday afternoon?
Oh, that's brilliant.
It is. They turn a vague slip-up into a major, revealing insight about the company's daily operations.
To do that effectively on the fly, though, the masterclass says an interviewer needs T-shaped knowledge.
Yes.
The vertical bar of the T represents your deep, specialized expertise in your own field. But the horizontal bar represents your broad, working understanding of multiple different disciplines, allowing you to connect disparate dots and recognize patterns quickly.
And the DR Congo attackers functioned exactly like elite interviewers utilizing that T-shaped knowledge. Kusanov, abandoning his defensive post, was the negative space. He left a glaring structural gap in the defense.
Right.
Attackers like Wissa, Meshak, Elia, and Fiston Mayo utilized their broad spatial awareness, their horizontal processing speed, to immediately recognize that gap. They didn't just play the ball, they played the negative space Kusanov left behind, ruthlessly moving into the exact zones he vacated.
They just poured through the opening and completely dismantled the Uzbek defense. In the 68th minute, Wissa earns a penalty inside the box and converts it cleanly to tie the game.
The turning point.
Absolutely. 10 minutes later, Meshack Ilya takes a shot from distance. It takes a heavy deflection, and Fiston Mayel surges into the exact space the scrambling Uzbek defense failed to cover, dinking it over the keeper for a 2-1 lead.
Beautiful play.
And finally, Wisa seals the game with a brilliant strike from the edge of the box in stoppage time. 3-1.
They engineered the environment, embraced the tension, forced the mistake, recognized the negative space, and capitalized on it. The result of stringing those elements together is a total transformation of the narrative.
A complete transformation. The aftermath of this 3-1 victory is staggering. DR Congo punches their ticket to the round of 32 to face England in Atlanta. This marks their first knockout stage appearance in team history.
That's incredible.
The only other time this nation even appeared in the tournament was 52 years prior in 1974, playing under the name Zaire.
And that 1974 team suffered a brutal 9-0 defeat to Yugoslavia. The historical baggage this 2026 team carried into the tournament was immense.
It really was.
Their advancement also contributes to a massive historic milestone for the 2026 tournament as a whole. A record 8 African nations advanced to the knockout stage.
Wow. And Yohan Wissa, who was named player of the match for his incredible performance, he summarized the emotional toll perfectly when he spoke to the media afterward. He said, "The weight on our shoulders was hard to bear."
I can't even imagine. And on the losing side, Fabio Canavaro, reflecting on his team's collapse, lamented that his squad spent too much energy early on and made what he called small mistakes.
Yeah, and those small mistakes, under relentless, calculated pressure, cost them the tournament.
The masterclass states clearly that a truly great deep dive, a great interview, leaves the listener changed. It creates a definitive before and after state.
It's not just an exchange of information.
No, it fundamentally alters your perspective on a subject. DR Congo's performance altered the global standing of their nation and enriched the narrative of the entire African continent at the World Cup. A masterful conversation does the exact same thing on a micro level. It enriches the host, it elevates the guest, and it leaves the listener fundamentally transformed.
There is a powerful allusion to all of this, though. When you listen to a brilliant, intimate 45-minute conversation, the flow feels completely effortless. The final, polished product magically masks the hours of painstaking research, the messy pre-interviews, the audio engineering, and, the anxiety of the initial cold outreach.
Oh, yeah. The seamlessness of the final product hides the grueling labor required to produce it. Every single time.
And DR Congo's historic 90-minute victory in the Atlanta Dome works the exact same way. The beauty of those 3 goals masks the agonizing multi-year path they had to walk just to get to that stadium.
People forget about the qualifiers.
The tactical reports remind us they had to survive brutal win-or-go-home qualifiers against African heavyweights like Cameroon and Nigeria, plus an exhausting interconfederation playoff against Jamaica. That glorious breakthrough under the closed roof was built on a massive, unseen foundation of struggle and preparation.
It always is.
Yeah.
If we synthesize the core insight from this intersection of tactical football and audio mastery, it comes down to this. Breakthrough success does not happen by accident. It does not happen simply by trying harder.
Right.
First, you have to do the unseen, unglamorous labor of engineering a controlled, safe environment. Second, you must use the safety of that environment to inject calculated angular tension that disrupts rehearsed, comfortable patterns. And third, you need the broad awareness to spot the negative space, the small gaps and mistakes in the system, and the agility to press into them to create a transformation.
That is perfectly said. So the next time you hit a wall trying to solve a complex problem, or you find yourself facing a massive professional or personal failure, I want you to look closely at the internal dialogue you are having with yourself. Ask yourself, are you just reciting your rehearsed excuses and playing a conversational low block in your own mind to stay comfortable? Or are you willing to ask yourself the uncomfortable, angular questions, press into your own negative space, and do the heavy lifting required to engineer your own breakthrough?